welcome everyone to another episode of Panther Weekly. I'm Tyler Kuehl alongside Ryan Thompson. Ryan, last one here before the Thanksgiving break. We're going to talk about another sport that is indoors. Typically during the wintertime, starts pretty soon here on a normal circumstances. Obviously with the pandemic, that's kind of not the case this year. We're going to talk about wrestling today.
Yeah, and let's start with the men's program. We'll talk a little bit about the women's program, who is going to go into their first season. But let's talk about the men. Head coach Jamie Boyd entering his 7th season at the helm. He's the only coach in program history, so he's built this thing from ground zero all the way up to what it is today. A lot invested in the program. It's a program that is looking to kind of make further strides, Tyler. We've had just one dual match win in each of the last 2 seasons, so it's something that we're continuously trying to build. I think the biggest challenge we've had is moving from Naia to Ncaa. If you take a look at a sport like wrestling, probably the biggest jump in terms of competition.
Yeah, it's a very different. Obviously, NAIA still has a lot of good talent, and Davenport had some success down there. But going up to NCAA, where the money, I don't say the money is, but there's a lot of scholarships in there, and teams really bolster up with a lot of great talent from the NCAA level. And that's one thing the Panthers are trying to progress with at the NCAA level. Now in their conference now. They're in the Great Lakes Valley Conference, one of the best conferences in Division II. So if it wasn't any easier in the past couple of years, Ryan, it's going to get even more difficult when this Panthers squad joins the GLVC.
Yeah, like you said, one of the top conferences in Division II. They had 3 teams in the GLVC ranked in the top 25 at the conclusion of last season. McHenry was 2nd. Lindenwood 7th, and University of Indianapolis was 24th. Not just the GLVC, but this region in general. Notre Dame College, I think, was 4th at the end of the year. Ashland. There's some other GLIAC schools that have wrestling, not enough to have a sponsored sport. And so that's why we went out and went to the GLVC to see if we could be an affiliate member. And I know you'll see the interview a little bit later with Coach Boyd. He's very excited about that because of this competition, and it's really only going to build the program.
Yeah, and that's, obviously wrestling is slightly a more growing sport, as we see even here at Davenport with the addition of the women's team. But like you said, Ryan, we'll get to that in the second half of today's program. Talking a little bit about last season, and talking about some of the notable performances. It was their first appearance in the NCAA regionals and down in Indianapolis. They finished 9th of the 10 teams. But Ryan, there were some wrestlers that actually really stood out, not just individually and during the nationals or the regionals, but throughout the entire season as well.
Yeah, if you go into the regionals, you had Sam Greco. He finished 5th at 174 pounds. You also had River Fox. He finished 6th at 285 pounds. Those were the top finishers at the regional level last year. In fact, it was only 2 guys that actually won a match in the regionals. So it was awesome to see them finish as high as they did. Other notable performances from last year, Fox won the 285-pound title at the Loras College Open. And then we mentioned Greco, and then Jordan Ringler, who we'll interview here shortly, or who will show the interview shortly. They each finished 3rd at the Manchester Classic. So those were some of the guys that did well on the mat last year.
Yeah, and there's, like I said, those guys are good on the mat, but there's also a very deep talent pool in the classroom for this Panther team as well. They earned GLIAC honors, even though, like you said, it's not a sponsored sport within the Great Lakes Intercollegiate Athletic Conference, but there were some guys, 3 guys were named All-Academic, including Jacob Holmes, Caleb Norris, Jordan Ringel. 6 were named All-Academic Excellence, which had a GPA of above 3.5. That included Sam Greco, Andy Hansen, Houston Hemmingson, Aaron Martin, Asher Meekoff, and Danielle Pupor, which I'm glad I got all those without talking. I did the tongue twister after the fact. I get through all the names, of course.
Of course.
But let's jump to an interview now with Sam Greco, Jordan Ringler, and Coach Jamie Boyd to talk about the wrestling team here on Panther Weekly.
Hi, I'm Ryan Thompson, Assistant AD for Athletic Communications here at Davenport University. And today we are joined by head wrestling coach Jamie Boyd in his 7th season with the program. Coach, a couple questions for you here today. The first one I have is, this pandemic has really delayed your season, which was set to start in January now. What has been your training regimen since returning to campus during the fall?
Well, we've mostly just been doing weight training and conditioning. Up until probably 3 weeks ago, we were allowed to get back on the mat in our pod group. So we do, we still with our lifting, but now we've transitioned away from doing strictly conditioning, meaning off the mat conditioning, to on the mat workouts. So for the past 3.5 weeks, actually probably 2.5 weeks now, we've been on the mat in small pod groups. So we do pods of 4. It's not ideal from the standpoint of you don't get that same intensity that you would have in a normal team practice. But on the other side of it, you do get more one-on-one work with us coaches. So from that standpoint, it's good. From the other standpoint, it's not. They tend to be a little bit smaller or shorter in time too, as well, just so we can get everybody in throughout the day. But we're plugging along, and our guys are getting better.
Well, that's fantastic. What are some of the qualities that you're looking for in recruiting to build the program?
We're looking for guys with that mental toughness, as well as the academics. Obviously, those things go hand in hand from a wrestling standpoint as far as the guys that we're looking for. If you don't have the academics coming here, it's going to be a struggle for you because the workouts, the demand on your time is going to be a lot more than what you normally would face in a high school season. So, academics is definitely first and foremost. From a wrestling standpoint, like I said, we're looking for that mental toughness. It doesn't always necessarily mean the individual that's a 4-time state champ. I'd love to have them. But really from a mental toughness standpoint, we look for is guys who were able to rebound in big tournaments. So for example, you were in the state finals, made it to the semifinals, and you lost. Well, what happened after that? Did you lose your next 2 matches, or did you come back and win? Because those are the type of guys that, for us, on the surface, show that mental toughness, and that's what you're really looking for. Because when we're in nationals, if we want to win it as a team, we have to have those guys that are able to rebound from a loss and come back strong.
Some exciting news for your program. You're going to be an affiliate member of the Great Lakes Valley Conference starting this year. How excited are you to have that affiliation?
That's a real benefit to our program, just because of the competition that we will be facing in that conference. It is by far the toughest conference in Division II. Just through if you look at the rankings of the individuals as well as the teams, it's been consistently, the best conference in this division. So we're excited. We look forward to that competition.
The last question, another big development for you guys is adding the women's wrestling program. How many do you expect on the roster during this first year, and what are your expectations for that?
Well, our first year, we kind of had the setback with COVID, as a lot of programs have, regardless of whether or not it's men's and women's. Our numbers are not, we don't have large numbers right now, but the individuals that we do have, they're tough girls. And we're glad to have landed them, to start our program. We do obviously see our numbers growing, maybe even exponentially next year. Hopefully, we're able to get out there and do more of the recruiting and bring girls on campus starting second semester here, because obviously that is a huge selling point for us, is to get these kids on campus so we can show them what we have to offer.
Coach, thank you for joining me here today. It's been an honor and a pleasure. I'm glad that we get to do this. I wish it was face-to-face, as I'm sure you do as well. But yeah. Hopefully everybody can stay safe out there and do your part, wear a mask, so we can all get back together shortly. So, again, Coach, I appreciate it, and have a great season.
You too. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ryan Thompson, Assistant Athletic Director for Communications here at Davenport University. And today we are talking the men's wrestling program. We're being joined by Senior Sam Greco from Granville, and also Senior Jordan Ringler from Cedar Springs. Sam, we'll start with you. Entering your senior season, what have you been most proud of in your career so far?
As far as accolades go, I would say probably last year getting the NCAA Scholar All-American. That was probably the best achievement that I've had so far.
Also, you were able to finish 5th in your weight class at the Ncaa regionals last year. First time you guys had the chance to compete at that level. What was that experience like for you?
It was a great experience. I mean, Jordan can attest. It's after 2 years of not being able to compete in the postseason, and then finally, getting on that spotlight with all the top guys in the nation, and then being able to perform at a high level was a great experience. And then I ended up beating some guys that I hadn't beaten all year, and I mean, obviously didn't finish how I wanted to, but I ended on a good note.
And the last question for you, Sam, would be, what are your team and individual goals as you head into this last season for you?
Well, as a team, we don't have as many dates as we normally would, but I mean, going into the team stuff, we'd like to compete with all the teams that we're going to be going up against. And then as far as individual goals for me go, I mean, it's all American or nothing. That's been the goal since I got here. So one more year to do it.
And Jordan, we'll turn things to you now. As a local student athlete from Cedar Springs, was staying close to home a factor in your choice of attending Davenport?
I wouldn't go ahead and say it was a factor because coming out of high school, I did want to wrestle. I wanted somewhere where I was going to get better and succeed. And Davenport actually happened to have what I wanted as far as school and the wrestling program. And I was looking for coaches and teammates there that were going to get me better. And so I just went ahead and went with it. It's been good so far.
Fantastic. As one of the senior members on this team, what has your leadership role been like?
I think it's been a lot of setting an example. I know when I came in here freshman year, those seniors, they didn't have a lot of people to look up to. And so coming in here as a freshman, I finally kind of had those guys to look up to, and that's what I want to do for the younger kids below me. They need some guidance. They need to get better, and they need to do the right things. And so I think I'm here to do that for them.
And then last question for you, as one of the top wrestlers over the past 3 years, what do you want your legacy to be within the program?
Legacy, I'd say just the fact that I show up every day on time. I come to wrestle and get better. I don't make excuses, and I think that's one of the biggest things that's helped me succeed at the college level. I show up to get better, and rather than worrying or making excuses as far as, oh, these guys are too good or this takes too much time, it's too hard, I show up and I want to learn. And so I think if I had a legacy, just show up and want to work hard, learn, get better.
Well, thank you both for being here with me today. Best of luck to you this upcoming year. I know it's going to start in January, so we'll be looking forward to that. And for everything else about the men's wrestling program, you can visit dupanthers.com. Follow us on social media.
And thank you once again to Mr. Greco, Ringler, and Coach Boyd. Ryan, those are a couple of the guys, and of course Coach Boyd as well, that are a couple of the big returners coming back to this Panther team this year. Along with Greco and Ringler, who else is going to be a big name to come back for the Panthers this year?
Yeah, we have a pair of seniors, and we did interview them with Sam from Granville. He's a 3-year letter winner for us, 27 career wins, including 11 last year. That was his career high. He was also academic all-GLIAC, so a real solid individual coming back in Sam. And then Jordan Ringler from Cedar Springs, also a 3-year letter winner, 44 career wins. I don't know if exactly that's the most ever. I'd have to assume that is, especially since we went to NCAA. Double-digit wins every year, so he's been a model of consistency. He placed runner-up at the Lindenwood Open last year at 149 pounds. That was his top finish a year ago. And then a couple of younger guys who kind of burst on the scene last year in River Fox. He'll just be a sophomore from Schoolcraft High School. He actually led our team with 19 wins, and he wrestled 40 matches.
Jeez.
That was, far and beyond everybody else as a heavyweight. He won 7 times, each by fall, so 7 pins. That was the most we had, and also had 7 decision wins. Danielle Pupor, who is a redshirt sophomore from Saline, redshirted his freshman year. He finished the season 12-8 last year. He won 1 match by fall, and he had 2 major decisions. He won 3 times at the Findlay Open. He also had 3 decisions at the Midwest Classic. He placed 3rd at the Loras College Open at 125 pounds, and he was a GLIAC academic excellence pick over a 3.5 GPA. Also some other guys, also with double-digit wins. You had Robbie Altland, which is a sophomore from Hart. He had 11 match wins last year as a freshman. And then Asher Meekoff, a junior from Allendale High School, also with 11 match wins. That actually doubled his win total from his sophomore year, so you saw great improvement from him.
Yeah, and you only think that with these guys, especially with the senior class that you have with Greco up there, like they'll learn from guys like that, and they'll continue to progress on as this program moves forward. Because, we talk about that with a lot of the sports that are just turning NCAA here at Davenport. They will continue to grow as Davenport, continues to be at the NCAA level here in the GLIAC as well.
Yeah, and that's what you'll see. And the other guys we didn't mention, obviously, it's a shorter show. We can't mention everybody, but those were the guys, like I said, with double-digit wins. There's other guys that are coming up and are going to do some big things here for Davenport.
Yeah, because I definitely know just by walking by the auxiliary gym that there's a few more than 10 guys wrestling. There's a few of them running the mats.
That's right.
But whenever the next season does start, it will be the first season for the women's program, Ryan. And, of course, Jamie Boyd will be the head coach there as well. He'll do double duty. Mm-hmm. And this is going to have, starting the season with 7 wrestlers, 5 freshmen. And that's something with first-year programs, you'll either see one of two things. You'll either see a coach go for very young, or you'll see kind of a lot of mixture of young talent, but with some transfers as well. Boyd's trying to start from scratch here, having 5 freshmen. And the biggest hurdle for him, Ryan, I'm sure with a lot of the coaches here at Davenport as well, was trying to recruit talent during the pandemic. But here's the kicker. Whereas a lot of these programs were established at Davenport, this is a first-year program trying to get people to come on board when, hey, we're a first-year team. We don't know how it's going to go, and we may not even know if we're going to be able to wrestle this year. But Jamie was able to get some pretty good wrestlers coming on board here this season.
Yeah, you'd mentioned the hurdle of recruiting. That certainly, with a new program, is definitely a big hurdle. It is across the board, as we've done several interviews, and Jamie Boyd talked about that during the interview and what a challenge that was. But you got to look at this area. There's a lot more to choose from this area than maybe some other areas. I know that girls wrestling is not an MHSAA-sponsored sport yet,
nope.
But I'm sure it will be. It's kind of an emerging sport. But you had people like Hannah Becker from Ada. She went to Forest Hills Central. She was the first recruit signee in program history in 2020, back in, I think it was February, before the pandemic hit. She was the Michigan Wrestling Association Girls High School State Championship. She won that with Forest Hills Central. She finished second in that tournament. She went 29-3 on the mat, and she earned 3 varsity letters. She also was participating in other sports as well. So wrestling, as she said, it was something new to her. I think her father wrestled in college, and so it was something that Jamie wanted to go find an athlete. He wanted to find somebody that could, obviously wrestle, but do other things and kind of bring that intensity and tenacity to the mat. So she's probably one of our top recruits. Miracle Barra from Brawley, California. We went all the way out to the Gold Coast there to get her from Brawley Union High School. She was a 4-time league champ, 2-time state qualifier. She ranked 8th in the state of California. She was a CIF qualifier and champ, and then she was a 3-time team captain. So those are probably the 2 that kind of are highlighted more than others, I guess. 3 other freshmen coming in with accolades as well. And then you throw in 2 girls who are on the women's rugby team, who have decided to come on out and help as well. Megan Bird, Paige Grossi. So it's awesome to see them kind of contribute and come on board and give us a little bit more in terms of numbers.
And you talk about with Becker having athletes, those 2 are Bird and Grossi.
Right.
Those 2 are exceptional athletes. And obviously in rugby, it's a pretty physical sport if you haven't watched it before. So obviously they will not be they won't be out of their element on the mat there in wrestling. So before we wrap things up here on this pre-Thanksgiving edition of Panther Weekly, we must thank our lovely sponsors, Premier Family Eye Care, J&H Family Stores, Chick-fil-A's, Uccello's. Gotta love Uccello's, man, those pizza puffs.
That's right.
Fortunately, we couldn't do we did not have the coaches show this week, but that's okay. You can still get your pizza puffs.
Right.
You can do your takeout orders and all that good
Takeout,
stuff.
yep.
And if you have Uccello's, Chick-fil-A, and go to J&H Family Stores and get your snacks all in one sitting, you may need to visit the Spectrum Health Medical Group, where you
might.
You may need that.
A lot of cholesterol.
A lot of good food, and maybe just a little bit too much if you have too much fun there. But it's okay. Also, Adidas. Always got to mention Adidas here, so you see right behind us.
Right. You got to get it in shape after you go to the doctor and come back because you had too many pizza poofs.
Yes, pizza poofs.
Oh, I'm sorry, puffs.
Pizza poofs.
That's a different program. But anyways, Adidas.
Adidas, and make sure there Cooper is falling apart behind the camera.
I know.
We should probably wrap it up before he cries himself to sleep. Thank you all once again. For Ryan Thompson, I'm Tyler Kuehl. Everyone have a happy Thanksgiving. Stay safe. Go Panthers, and we'll see you next time.